Hello, and welcome to the Sanctum Sanctorium. And this is Dr. Josh Smith, and we are coming here live from my office. And I wanted to talk about an important topic today. And I know it's the holiday season, and it's nice to be thinking about happy things, but sometimes we have to talk about serious things. And this is an issue that I didn't realize was such a problem until I got into this area, and that is the issue of caregiver abuse. And so this is when the caregiver is being abused. And I have seen this many, many times in the field of expertise that I work in. There are many angry autistic individuals that I work with, and they will take their anger out on their parents and caregivers. And it becomes an extremely difficult situation because if you have a significant other who is being abusive, while it is difficult, you can leave. However, when you have a child or that of yours or a child that you are in charge of or taking care of, you have limited options in how to deal with that child and how to help them. And I have seen horrible things done to parents and caregivers where they have been severely injured. A young man ripped the banister off the stairwell and beat his grandmother with it. I've seen people stabbed. I've known of mothers who've had their ribs broken, arms broken, and they are perplexed on how to deal with the situation. It gets even that much more concerning when we talk about the fact how you respond without hurting the child and putting yourself in danger of abusing the child. There's a couple of things that are important to know. First of all of us who are parents of special needs children need to understand in our heads that it is a possibility that at some point while our child is going through their life that they might have to go to a psychiatric hospital. None of us wants that to happen. And sometimes it might not even be ideal for the child, but there has to be safety maintained. As a parent, our number one priority is to keep our child and everyone in our household safe. And that can be a difficult thing to do when you have an autistic child. It is important to know what is the closest psychiatric hospital, whether they take your insurance, and so that you know ahead of time. Most of these psychiatric hospitals are open for admissions 24/7, and in an emergency situation, you will just go there. It gets troublesome when the child cannot be safely transported to the hospital. And I have seen this happen many times. One of the unfortunate things is that in many cases, the local ambulance will not take children who are aggressive directly to the psychiatric hospital, meaning that they will take them to the local hospital where they will be evaluated at the emergency room and then recommended to the psychiatric hospital, so it makes an extra stop. Also, admission to a psychiatric hospital takes a lengthy amount of time. The most efficient 2 hours. I've seen it 6-7 hours to get a child admitted into the hospital. So when you have to add in going to the emergency room first, it's very frustrating. And one of the things that is incredibly frustrating is that there are limited choices, at least in this Indiana, Kentucky area. For those of you who are listening out of state, maybe you have more options available to you, and I hope that's the case. Um, so it could be potential that the child will have calmed down by the time they meet the evaluator. Make sure that you have a good record of what the child did. Take notes. Some people record on their phone so that they can provide the evaluator with an accurate description. Um, and so that the child can be admitted if that is necessary. Hospitals are good for one thing, and that's to keep everybody safe. The evaluator at most places is a social worker, and the social worker will take all the information and call the psychiatrist on call, and it will be that psychiatrist decision about whether or not the child is admitted. So we want to make sure that the evaluator has all the necessary information to provide a good description to the psychiatrist. While the child is at the psychiatric hospital, they will usually be there for a period of 5 to 7 days. It is a good time to try to work with the case manager as soon as the child is admitted. So they get admitted on Monday, you're calling the caseworker on Tuesday and already working on the discharge plan. The people who work with me, they know that I want to be placed as a an approved contact so that I can call onto the unit, that I can talk to the psychiatrist, and I can check in and see how my patient is doing. Because even though I'm their psychologist, if they don't put me as an approved contact, I cannot get any information on that patient. And we want to have it as smooth as the discharge process as possible. So do not drive a actively upset child to the psychiatric hospital. If you cannot keep them safe, even though it'll take longer, call an ambulance and have them take them. Because the most dangerous thing we can do is drive an upset, aggressive, autistic child in a vehicle. It is a recipe for disaster. One of the things that can be helpful is to learn an approved crisis management strategy. I have worked in areas of a few psychiatric hospitals and at the prison, and I really found the most useful to be SCM, Safety Crisis Management, and there are approved courses for parents, and this teaches you how to hold your child safely in the event that they become aggressive. And it is extremely helpful to know that you have that available to you. I have had to use that on my daughter on at least one occasion, and I was glad I knew what to do when that occurred. Even despite your height or your weight, I have been able to hold and restrain people twice my size based off the strategies that they have taught me. One of the things that makes dealing with autistic children so difficult is that when they're in a full tantrum mode, they are not considering how their behavior can be hurting an individual. A typically developing person is still considering that in the back of their mind. An autistic person is not considering that. So they will hurt you, and they will hurt you hard. And you have to anticipate any variety of ways that you can be hurt. You come up and you hold a child from behind, that's good. But if you are not paying proper attention, they will pull that head back, and a head bob to the back, from their back of their head to your front of your head. That stings pretty good. So you have to be prepared and be looking out for these kinds of things. Sometimes it is necessary if a child has had significant problems with aggressive behavior over time and despite multiple admissions to a psychiatric hospital, it is important to consider residential treatment. Residential treatment can last up to a period of 6 months, if not longer. In the Kentucky, Indiana area, there are limited residential treatment facilities. And my recommendation is if you have a child who is on that route, to go ahead and schedule tours of these places, learn information. Even if it's getting serious, start gathering the information. A residential admission does not happen quickly. The quickest I've ever seen it happen is 2 weeks, but it can take longer. They have to obtain all the information from the doctors and the therapists and all the people providing, and they have to evaluate that information. And you do not want to be in the spot where there is an extreme emergency and then you have nothing set up. You get the process going. Best case scenario, they start improving. Then when the place calls you, you say, actually, they're doing a little better. You can take our name off the list and go on to the next person. That is perfectly fine. Or they start to behave really badly while you are in the application process, and then they get admitted to like a Wellstone, and then you can, which is a psychiatric hospital here locally, and you can say we are in the process for a residential admission, and then they can arrange a transfer to that residential facility. That residential time is a great time to work with the other children in the household and get them prepared for how to deal with the child when they come back, and help them deal with the trauma they've gone through, because it is very difficult on these brothers and sisters to have to deal with an aggressive autistic sibling. Okay. So there is all that. It is important that if your child has autism, that they are on the autism waiver, and you can make use of all the respite and CLS services, that's community living supports, that you can, because it is exhausting to take care of an aggressive autistic child. I knew of one family where the mom and dad would have to take turns on watch. So the dad would sleep 2 hours while the mom took watch, and then they would rotate all throughout the night because they felt that somebody had to be awake 24 hours a day to keep an eye on the child even while they're asleep, which sounds exhausting. So no matter what your circumstances is, you need a break. You need a time to collect your thoughts and just have time to let yourself think, and these respite and CLS services are a perfect way to provide that. Now, when we get into the very, very serious scenario, and I hate it when we get here, we get to the spot where the autistic child is hurting the parents, hurting the siblings, and in some cases, CPS can get involved, not because the parents are doing anything wrong, but because it is beyond their capacity to take care of the child, even despite their best efforts. And CPS can get involved, and their ability to facilitate residential treatment placements can be helpful from time to time. I have even seen it where caregivers have voluntarily given up their parental rights, or voluntarily allowed CPS to be involved with the family because it has reached beyond their capacity. Raising a child with autism is the most difficult thing that I can imagine. I do it with my wife. and we are educated people. I am a psychologist who specializes in autism. My wife is a very intelligent person who graduated with a degree in elementary education, and we are exhausted at the end of the day sometimes, and our children are not aggressive. So, for those caregivers who are being abused, I have nothing but sympathy. Having a good therapist, having good advanced behavior analysis interventions can be the frontline goal. Having good family support or friend support or church support is necessary. And being there to listen to these people who go through these challenges is paramount. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to comment below and I will do my best to answer your question. I hope this has been helpful. I will talk to you later. Goodbye.